The Spanish flu. 2020 was a bad year for viruses. We can agree on that, but potentially, 1918 was slightly worse. Hear me out. The Spanish flu was similar to the COVID pandemic, with fewer Zoom meetings and more, oh no, half the people I know are dying. It infected almost a third of the world's entire population, which means more than 500 million people were coughing, sneezing, and spreading germs quicker than, I don't know, something that spreads quickly. Butter? The death toll? 50 million people. Remember, this was just after World War I, so if you thought people were tired of chaos and death, think again. Another round, courtesy of nature. It's like mankind requested dessert, and nature replied, how about a flu pie? Enjoy. Get it? Laugh. Laugh at the joke. By the way, what about social distancing? Yeah, they had not worked it out yet. People were still gathering in large groups, shaking hands, and breathing all over one another as if it was nothing. Could you imagine? At least in 2020, we had Netflix to keep us occupied. In 1918, all they had was the Spanish flu and death. It's a marvel we survived that one. Okay, but the Spanish flu only infected like 30% of the world. That was only like 500 million people. It's time to go bigger. The Mount Tambora eruption. Let's go back to another classic, Mount Tambora. In 1815, this Indonesian volcano went into self-destructive mode. It might have had some sort of breakdown. Well, Tambora made the world experience a whole year without a summer. Sounds like a nice escape from the heat. Nope, wrong. Tambora sent so much ash into the sky that it disrupted the weather for years. Crops failed, people went hungry, and everyone seemed a little grumpier than normal. Imagine waking up in July expecting sunlight, but getting snowflakes. I bet back then people didn't even have vitamin D capsules. Could not imagine that. Farmers would say, I swear it was planting season yesterday, and now I'm getting frostbite. Is this a joke? Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Global food shortages were particularly severe in Europe and North America. Bread costs soared, which is so depressing. Let's be honest, all people wanted was bread back then, because they really didn't know how to cook anything else. And to add insult to injury, the eruption caused some of the most breathtaking sunsets ever seen. Because nothing screams we're on the verge of starvation like a beautiful sky. At least you had something pretty to look at as your crops decayed and your family starved to death. Tambora's eruption was basically Earth's way of saying, screw your summer vacay plans, and while I'm at it, let's starve you to death. Top that, humans. Toba supervolcanic eruption. Picture this, you're a caveman in caveman times, living your best caveman life. Maybe you're smashing stones together, or you're watching your neighbor get dissected by a saber-toothed tiger. I don't know, caveman stuff. Then, out of nowhere, the ground begins shaking. At first, you're annoyed because you think, what is this shit, man? I'm just trying to work. Then you decide to look up because things start feeling a little funny, and you see that the sky turns dark. But it's not a nightmare. Nope, there's ash. A lot of ash. Like around 2,800 cubic kilometers of ash, I'd say, somewhere in that ballpark. Welcome to the Toba supervolcanic eruption, where Mother Nature decided she's had enough of your stone tools and cave paintings and wants to restart the whole damn ecosystem. And this wasn't your typical volcano. No, this was the Beyonce of volcanic eruptions. And side note, this didn't just last for a day or two, it lasted for years. Think of this as nature's equivalent of shutting off the Wi-Fi and watching everyone panic. Temperatures sank, and let me tell you, their clothing was not designed for volcanic winters. Considering their only jacket would be like a giant animal hide, assuming they could even catch one, which was highly unlikely because most animals were dead at that point due to the volcano. And not only did their clothing fail them, but so did the agriculture. Farming communities that once did well were forced to watch as their food supply shrank. And without the ability to raise fresh vegetables or to keep cattle, society's delicate ecosystem just collapsed. Basically, they were all suffering in every way possible. Scientists say that the eruption was so devastating that it reduced the worldwide human population to between 1,000 to 10,000 people. That's like reducing all of mankind to the size of a high school football game. But instead of cheerleaders and nachos, everyone is chilly, malnourished, and wondering where did the sun go? We were on the verge of extinction, but somehow our forefathers survived. It's kind of unbelievable that any of us are here today. Alright, 900,000 years ago, the creature you could refer to as pre-humans, called Homo erectus, roamed the streets. And their huge catastrophe that almost ended the world, they kinda just stopped making more of themselves. This was actually a very near miss. They dwindled to just about 1,280 people, which is a really small amount given how high the mortality rates were back then. Yep, Just 1,280 people attempting to live, get food, and date. But before you get sentimental, keep in mind that the dating pool consisted of just a few of your relatives. It must have been pretty hard to choose who to make a baby with. It's like being on Tinder in the middle of nowhere, with each swipe revealing someone that you share way too much DNA with. Fun, isn't it? Well, anyway, that population catastrophe lasted 117,000 years, which is longer than most of us have been alive. Maybe our forefathers were experimenting with their orientations and decided to put a stop on family making and just focus on themselves. I guess we can't blame them. Alright, now fast forward to the 20th century. We're a little more advanced. We've got radios, television shows, and of course, nuclear weapons. Why worry about natural disasters when you can create your own apocalypse? The Cold War was basically two superpowers playing the most dangerous game of chicken the world has ever seen. On one side, you have the United States with its shiny new nuclear weapons, and on the other, the Soviet Union with enough firepower to turn Earth into a cheap glow stick. Everyone's on the edge, politicians are sweating through their suits, and the rest of the world is hoping nobody accidentally presses the big red button. It was like two toddlers trying to press the big shiny buttons that would wipe everyone out. You all might have heard about the Cuban Missile Crisis in school. You also might have slept through that chapter, fair enough. But it did almost end the world, so let's talk about it. It all happened in 1962. Now, the most important thing that happened that year is obviously the Rolling Stones being formed. Gotta give them a shout out, influential as hell. And secondly, we also nearly blew ourselves to pieces with nuclear missiles. Yeah, it was a very close call. For 13 days, we were all thinking, is this it? Is this when we finally nuke ourselves back to the Stone Age? Fortunately, calmer minds prevailed. And by calmer minds, I mean everyone understood that they would rather not be nuked to oblivion. And just when mankind thought that it had dodged enough bullets, 1983 arrived, and Cold War tensions reached an all-time high. The world was on the verge of nuclear chaos, with the United States and the Soviet Union ready to unleash havoc with the press of a button. Enter Stanislav Petrov, a Soviet lieutenant colonel, who was stashed inside a bunker to oversee early warning systems. One day, a radar screen flashed an alert. Incoming US missiles. Most people in such a position would have panicked and rang the alarm, triggering a chain reaction that would absolutely have destroyed the world as we know it. But not Petrov. Under pressure, he took a big breath, looked at the screen, and thought, that's probably a glitch. And guess what? He was right. No missiles. It turned out to be a radar malfunction. And without his decision making, history might have taken an unfortunate turn. Petrov did more than just avert a crisis, he became the unsung hero who saved the world from nuclear apocalypse. Let's take a minute to reflect that our entire survival basically depended on one man's decision to not panic. Next time people say you're too lazy or you don't pay attention, that might be a good thing because it might save us all. Stanislav, we owe you a huge thanks. Maybe even a statue. Or at least a Starbucks gift card. Or maybe a stash of whatever you were having that made you so calm. Now let's talk about something even more ridiculous. Gamma ray bursts. Do you believe everyday disasters are scary? Try space events. GRBs are essentially space lasers on steroids. These are the type of explosions that occur in distant galaxies, yet are so intense that if they struck Earth, we'd be toasted like marshmallows. Actually, marshmallows just turned golden brown. We'd be wiped out in seconds. Obviously, it hasn't happened yet, but I mean, it could. When? Well, scientists don't know how and when it'll happen, but if it does happen, one day you'll just wake up and see that everything's gone. Luckily, it might not be too fast. You might get some time to send a streak or post about it on Instagram before dying. If a GRB ever targeted Earth, it would destroy the ozone layer before you even got the chance to apply some sunscreen. Without that protective layer, we'd be absorbing UV rays like a post-apocalyptic tanning booth. And spoiler alert, that would not end well. And if you're thinking you should start applying more sunblock to prepare your skin, well, I hate to break it to you, but no amount of skincare would work against that shit. You walk outside, and within minutes, you're sizzling like bacon on a June sidewalk. Your skin will peel right off, and you won't even get to use aloe vera. Great, isn't it? Scientists believe that a GRB may have even been responsible for previous extinction events. Oh, very nice, as if we don't have enough to worry about with asteroids, volcanoes, and nuclear disasters. Now on top of everything else, we get to worry about space lasers. Fun, isn't it? Anyway, that's that. YouTube thinks that you'll like this video next, so click it, and if you made it to the end, subscribe.